Imagine this. You're floating in the middle of the ocean. No land in sight. No sound except the slow rhythm of waves. Below you, darkness. A world we barely understand. And hidden inside that darkness is a creature that has broken one of the most important rules of life. A rule that applies to you, to me, to every human who has ever lived. The rule of death. Because somewhere in the ocean, there exists an animal that doesn't just live long. It can escape death entirely. Not by hiding, not by being strong, not by being fast, but by doing something far more unbelievable. It can reverse its own age. Meet the immortal jellyfish, Turritopsis dohrnii. At first glance, this creature doesn't look special at all. In fact, it looks like something you wouldn't even notice. It's tiny, almost transparent, barely a few millimeters wide. You could stare right at it and never realize what you're looking at. But inside this small, fragile body is one of the most powerful biological abilities ever discovered. Because unlike almost every other living thing on Earth, this jellyfish doesn't follow a straight life path. Most animals are born, they grow, they reproduce, and then they die. A one-way journey, no second chances. But Turritopsis dohrnii, it plays by completely different rules. To understand just how insane this is, we need to go back to the beginning of its life. Like most jellyfish, it starts as something called a larva. Tiny, helpless, drifting through the ocean currents. Eventually, it settles on the ocean floor and transforms into something completely different. A polyp. This stage doesn't even look like a jellyfish. It looks more like a tiny plant, attached to a surface, quietly waiting. But then, something incredible happens. The polyp begins to clone itself, over and over and over again, until it forms a colony, and from that colony, new jellyfish are born. Small, free-swimming, and independent. This is the stage most people recognize. Now here's where things get insane. Because for almost every jellyfish species on Earth, this is where the clock starts ticking. They grow, they reproduce, and eventually, they die. Game over. But not for Turritopsis dohrnii, because when this jellyfish is injured, or starving, or even just old, something unbelievable happens. Instead of dying, it transforms. Its body begins to collapse, its tentacles shrink, its bell folds inward, it sinks down toward the ocean floor, and then it turns back into a polyp, a younger version of itself, a complete biological reset. Think about that for a second. Imagine if you could do the same. Imagine growing old, your body weakening, your time running out, and then suddenly you turn back into a child. Not just feeling young, but actually becoming young again. Your cells reset, your body rebuilds, your life starts over. That's exactly what this jellyfish can do. Scientists call this process transdifferentiation. It's one of the rarest abilities in the entire animal kingdom. Most cells in your body are locked into their roles. A skin cell stays a skin cell. A muscle cell stays a muscle cell. But in Turritopsis dohrnii, cells can change their identity. They can transform into completely different types of cells. It's like rewriting the biological code of life, on demand. And this changes everything, because it means this jellyfish doesn't have to die from aging. It can keep resetting its life cycle, again and again and again, potentially forever. But here's the crazy part. This doesn't make it invincible. It can still be eaten, crushed, destroyed, killed by predators, fish, sea turtles, even other jellyfish. So in the real world, most of them don't actually live forever. But the key difference is this: they don't die from time. That makes Turritopsis dohrnii one of the only known animals on Earth that has achieved something close to biological immortality. And when scientists first discovered this, it completely changed how we think about life itself. Because for centuries, humans believed aging was inevitable, that every organism is programmed to grow old and die. But this jellyfish proved something shocking, that aging might not be a fixed rule. It might be something that can be broken. So naturally, scientists started asking questions. Big questions. Dangerous questions. Questions that sound like science fiction. What if we could understand this process? What if we could copy it? What if humans could reverse aging? Imagine a world where no one grows old, where diseases linked to aging disappear, where people don't just live longer, they live forever. It sounds like a dream, but also like a nightmare, because living forever comes with a cost. Overpopulation, resource shortages, a completely different society. Would people still value time if it never ran out? Would life even feel meaningful if it never ended? And all of these questions start with a tiny jellyfish, floating silently in the ocean. But the story of Turritopsis dohrnii doesn't stop here, because the deeper scientists looked, the more mysterious it became. Where did this ability come from? Why does this jellyfish have it, but almost nothing else does? And most importantly, could there be other creatures out there, hiding in the ocean, with even more unbelievable powers? Because if one tiny jellyfish can break the rules of life and death, what else is possible? So how does this tiny creature actually do it? How does something with no brain, no heart, no complex organs, manage to do something that humans, with all our intelligence, still can't? To understand that, we need to zoom in, way in, down to the level of cells. Inside your body right now, you have trillions of cells, each one with a specific job. Skin cells protect you. Muscle cells help you move. Nerve cells carry information. And once a cell chooses its role, that's it. It's locked in. A skin cell will never suddenly decide to become a brain cell. That kind of transformation is almost impossible in most living organisms, but not in Turritopsis dohrnii. When this jellyfish is under stress, something extraordinary begins. Its cells start to panic, but instead of shutting down, they reprogram themselves. Imagine taking a fully built house, and instead of demolishing it, you turn it back into raw materials. Bricks, wood, glass. Then you use those same materials to build something completely new. That's what happens inside this jellyfish. Its specialized cells reverse back into a more primitive state, almost like stem cells, and then they rebuild the entire organism from scratch. Scientists call this process cellular transdifferentiation, and it's one of the rarest biological abilities ever observed. But here's what makes it even crazier. This isn't just healing. This isn't regeneration like a starfish regrowing. This is a full life reset. The jellyfish doesn't just repair damage, it goes backward in time. Its adult body dissolves into a blob-like structure, then attaches itself to a surface, and slowly, it transforms into a polyp again, the earliest stage of its life. From there, it can grow again, become a jellyfish again, live again, and repeat this cycle, potentially forever. But scientists didn't believe this at first. When they first observed it, they thought it was a mistake, a lab error, something misunderstood, until one experiment changed everything. Researchers kept these jellyfish in controlled environments. They stressed them, damaged them, starved them, and instead of dying, the jellyfish kept resetting, over and over and over again. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't rare. It was a built-in survival mechanism. And that's when everything changed, because this meant one thing: aging might not be permanent. Now here's where things get even deeper, because aging in humans is actually caused by several biological problems. Your DNA gets damaged over time. Your cells lose their ability to divide. Your body accumulates errors. One of the biggest factors is something called telomeres. These are like protective caps at the ends of your DNA. Every time your cells divide, these caps get shorter. Eventually, they become too short, and your cells stop functioning properly. That's when aging accelerates. But in Turritopsis dohrnii, this process seems to be bypassed. When it resets its life cycle, it essentially resets its cellular age, like hitting a biological reset button. No accumulated damage, no aging, no expiration date. And that raises a terrifying question. If nature already figured this out, why can't we? Scientists around the world are now studying this jellyfish, hoping to unlock its secrets. Because if we could understand how its cells reprogram themselves, we might be able to apply that knowledge to humans. Imagine repairing damaged organs, reversing aging diseases, even regenerating tissues that normally never heal. It could revolutionize medicine. But there's a problem, a big one. Human biology is far more complex. If our cells started randomly changing identities, it could lead to something dangerous, something deadly. Cancer. Because cancer, in a way, is uncontrolled cell transformation. Cells growing where they shouldn't, becoming what they shouldn't. So the same power that makes this jellyfish immortal could also be extremely risky in humans. It's like holding a tool that can either save millions of lives or destroy them. And scientists are still trying to figure out how to control it. But here's something even more mysterious. Turritopsis dohrnii isn't the only strange creature in the ocean. There are animals that can regrow entire limbs, survive extreme pressure, live for hundreds, even thousands of years. The ocean is full of biological secrets we barely understand. And yet, this tiny jellyfish might be the most important of them all, because it challenges something we've always accepted as truth, that life moves in one direction, forward, toward an end. But what if that's not true? What if life can move backward too? What if aging isn't a rule, but just a limitation we haven't learned to break yet? And if we ever do, what kind of world would we create? A world without death? Or a world where living forever becomes the biggest problem of all? Because sometimes the most dangerous discoveries are the ones that seem like miracles. By now, you might be thinking, okay, one jellyfish can reset its life. That's crazy. But it's just one species, right? Wrong, because Turritopsis dohrnii is not alone. Hidden across the planet, there are other organisms, quietly breaking the rules of life. Take this, for example. There's a creature that can lose an arm and grow it back completely. Not just the shape, but nerves, muscles, function, perfectly restored. Some can even regrow parts of their brain. Others go even further. There are flatworms, called planarians, that can be cut into pieces, and each piece becomes a new organism. Not a copy, not a clone in a lab, a fully functioning living being. And then there's the hydra, a tiny freshwater organism that scientists have been studying for decades. And here's what they found. It doesn't age, at all. No increase in mortality, no signs of biological decline, no end point like humans. As long as it's not eaten or destroyed, it just keeps living, indefinitely. So now we have multiple organisms with different forms of what looks like immortality. But here's the strange part. They all use different methods. The hydra constantly renews its cells. Planarians rely on powerful stem cells, and Turritopsis dohrnii reverses its entire life cycle. Different strategies, same result. They escape aging. And this changes everything, because it suggests something incredible. Immortality isn't a one-time accident. It's not a glitch. It's something evolution has discovered multiple times. Which means there may be many more creatures out there we haven't even found yet, hidden in deep oceans, underground ecosystems, extreme environments, all quietly proving the same thing. Death is not always required. So now the question becomes even bigger. If nature can solve aging, why haven't humans? And the answer is both simple and unsettling. Because evolution doesn't care about you living forever. It only cares about one thing: reproduction. Once an organism reproduces, from an evolutionary perspective, its job is done. Anything beyond that is just extra. That's why most species, including humans, are not designed for immortality. We're designed to survive, just long enough to pass on our genes. But creatures like Turritopsis dohrnii took a different path. Instead of focusing on reproduction alone, they evolved survival strategies that go beyond death itself. And that makes them extremely rare, but also extremely important, because they might hold the key to one of humanity's oldest dreams: defeating death. And we've already started trying. In labs around the world, scientists are experimenting with ways to slow aging. Some are working on gene editing, using tools like CRISPR to repair damaged DNA. Others are studying stem cells, trying to regenerate tissues. And some are even exploring ways to reprogram human cells to make them younger again. In fact, scientists have already managed to reverse aging in certain cells in controlled conditions. Not in full humans yet, but the process has begun, which means this is no longer science fiction, it's early-stage reality. But here's where things take a darker turn, because even if we succeed, even if we unlock the secret of immortality, there's a question nobody can avoid. Should we? Imagine a world where humans stop aging. At first, it sounds perfect. No wrinkles, no disease, no death from old age. But then, the consequences begin. Population explodes. Resources become limited. Opportunities disappear. If no one dies, who gets to live? Who decides? And even more disturbing, what happens to meaning? Right now, time is valuable because it's limited. You care about your goals because you don't have forever. But if you did, would anything still matter? Or would life become endless, repetitive, empty? These are the questions hidden inside the story of a tiny jellyfish. Because Turritopsis dohrnii doesn't think about meaning. It doesn't worry about time. It simply resets and continues. But humans are different. We don't just want to live. We want our lives to mean something. And maybe that meaning comes from the fact that life eventually ends. So maybe immortality isn't just a biological challenge, it's a philosophical one. Because if we ever reach that point, where death is no longer inevitable, we won't just change medicine, we'll change what it means to be human. And it all started with a nearly invisible creature floating silently in the ocean, a creature that proved the rules of life are not as fixed as we once believed.